We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
So there's one called The Cemetery Sighting. And the author of this says that her son was about 2 at the time, and they were driving past the cemetery, and he said, "Look, Mama, dead people." And she just replied, as any mom would, "Yes, darling. You know, cemetery, yes.
There are dead people there.
There are dead people there."
Okay.
And he said, "Kids." Remember, he's 2, so, you know, the language skills aren't the best yet. And she said the way he said it was just so matter of fact. And she kind of looked over and she said, sure enough, they were passing the children's section. So she was curious, and she just said, "Are the kids happy or sad?" And he says, "Happy, Mama. They're running around that daddy." And she said, "All I saw was a man standing alone with his head dropped, you know, like he was, you know, there with his own child, mourning his own child." And she said it honestly warmed her heart, knowing that the spirit children were there kind of dancing. And she didn't know the story of, you know, who he was or who he was looking at or what went down, but that's just what this child said.
Oh.
So here's another one. She's a mom of 1. She says, "We bought our current house from a man who was married for 40 plus years. And his wife had passed away just a few years before they bought the house. And one evening they had a 2.5-year-old into bed, and he said, 'Mama, night-night to the grandma.' And he pointed kind of back behind her towards the room that would have been the master bedroom. So this little boy could see the grandma. There's another little boy who was 2.5, and he would say ghost and point to the dining room table. And they didn't really think much about it. And she said, "One day I mentioned Mr. Hutchinson to someone while giving a history of the house, and Leo said," that was her son, "Mr. Hutchinson, my ghost friend?"
Oh.
He's 2.5.
Right.
Okay. And 2.5s can be fairly, precocious and have quite a good vocabulary. I had a couple 2.5-year-olds that I thought something was wrong with them because they couldn't say anything until they were 3, but some can be very chatty and pick up on language skills a lot faster. And they actually confirmed with a house cleaner that they had, one of their maids that would come in, that there was someone attached to the home, and a grandfatherly figure had been seen quite often in this home. And yeah, so just, you know, this little 2.5-year-old just, "Oh, Mr. Hutchinson, my friend." And the mom's like, "How did you know that?"
It's comforting to know that not all ghosts are bad or mean.
Or scary.
Or scary. Maybe bumps in the night are just family members, or maybe a bump in the night's just a bump. But, you know, if it were to be a ghost, maybe it's just somebody trying to catch your attention. Maybe it's Mr. Hutchinson. You know, but I think that really does put things in perspective. I think in general, in life, I think most people are good. Mm-hmm. I would assume that most ghosts would be good.
Well, and sometimes you wonder, I don't know how the hereafter works. And you almost wonder if a new family moves in the house and the old owner of the house might just go, "Hey, who's in our house?" and might just pop in to see who's there. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean your house is haunted.
I've wanted to do that while I was alive. Go back to where I lived and be like, I wonder who's living in this place.
There's a house, and I think we've chatted about this before on the podcast, but there's a house that I spent time in as a child that is fabulously haunted. I'm convinced of it, and I would love to go ghost hunt it, but you can't exactly knock on the door and say, "I think your house is super haunted. Can I come ghost hunt it?"
You live in a haunted house. Can I come in?
I've thought about that going back to the home I grew up in. Not really sure how to approach that.
So there's got a couple more. So there's one, this story is called The Midnight Playmate. The mom says that at the time, her 4-year-old would tell her about a little girl that wanted to play with her. And this little girl would want to play any hours of the day. It wasn't just like right after school, you know, midnight, 2 a.m, 4 p.m, didn't matter what time. And the mom actually left the little ghost some toys in an upstairs closet so that she could play, you know, and, you know, it's midnight, but you can play with these toys type of a thing. And she had a little stuffed lamb and a stuffed duck, and every morning she would find them moved to different areas, to places that she hadn't left them. And she knew that it wasn't the 4-year-old moving the toys because they were in a different room. It wasn't in a. She'd leave them at night. She'd put her kids down. She'd leave the toys out, and they were in a completely different room, and they would be moved. And these little children would still be asleep. The mom would go check them in the morning, and she said it wouldn't have been her kids because she would have heard them.
That's Annabelle creepy.
That is a little creepy. That would probably spook me out a little bit.
Yeah.
There's one called the Door Slammer. There was a 4-year-old, and this 4-year-old would tell stories about a little girl in the home who would shut the door and turn off the lights. But he couldn't tell her where she would go or what she really looked like. It's like he knew she was there, but he couldn't describe her. And the mom said, I don't talk about ghosts or anything that would give my son this idea. And I think most parents don't talk to their 4-year-olds about ghosts because you're begging for your kids not to sleep and be in your bed all night long, right?
Tell them about ghosts. They'll love it.
Let's talk about monsters and Dracula and ghosts and then have a good night's sleep. Yeah, that will never happen.
That's what Scooby-Doo does, though, right? Scooby-Doo taught us all about ghosts.
True.
Yeah, but it's always some dude in a mask. At the end of the day, right? It's
This
never
is
an
true.
actual ghost.
It's all, yeah.
I would have got away with this one for those pesky kids.
See, I tried to get
They're
Scooby-Doo in
meddling
last
pop.
time, but we got it in this time. So the mom says, the last time the little girl was here, I heard the door slam. I ran in and asked him if he had closed it. He told me, no, the little girl did because she didn't want to play.
Oh.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.